Good morning. It's hard to believe that it's been almost 2 months since I've shared a message with you all. So, I will completely admit that as a kid, I thought Lord of the Rings was long and weird. Honestly, in hindsight, it was probably because my brother loved it, and therefore it had to be lame. I'm sorry, Will. I love you. Forgive me. I was a child. Personally, I was more of a Harry Potter kind of fan. So I first ended up reading The Hobbit for the first time as an adult for a paper that I wrote on J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote the book series. I sped through The Hobbit, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King rather quickly, and have reread it probably 4 times since. It's become a story that not only brings comfort and ignites my imagination, but the books are so long you can learn something new, I find every time. It has so many themes: journeys, betrayal, love, loyalty, forgiveness, loss, and many others. But my favorite and today's focus is friendship. I love friendship. I am a person who loves to celebrate and show up for my people. I love to write letters and affirm the incredible nature I see, especially in those I call friends. I've honestly been lucky because I've spent most of my adult life away from my family, who are incredibly supportive and always a phone call away. But friends have shown up in different chapters to cheer for me, to challenge me, to teach me lessons, to show up when those darkest nights came. It's been a huge blessing to me. They're there because they choose to be. I was reading through the Bible, which actually means I listened to the audio version of the Bible and listened until I heard something that was of interest. Scripture is the work of God, word of God. It's everything, but it's also a pretty thick book that's a translation of a language that most of us don't speak or read. It can be a little confusing and a little hard to swallow. I mean, Luke starts with the genealogy of Jesus, which makes literally zero sense until you realize the importance of the Old Testament stories and the individuals who made up the fabric of Jesus's life. And then it gets wild. But anyways, I'm currently listening through First Samuel, and I honestly, First Samuel is a book that means a lot to me. It's one that I've listened to and read several occasions. Um, but as I've been going through it this time, as I listened a little differently to the story of Jonathan and David. Jonathan and David talk about an iconic friendship. In 1 Samuel 18, Jonathan first decides to become friends with David. However, it wasn't just friendship. Scripture says he had a covenant with David. Friendship gets a lot of different definitions. I mean, friends are someone you've had a meal with or have laughed with or cried with. They come in many different variations and different levels. Jonathan, however, makes this covenant, and God uses covenants all the time. Think of Genesis when it begins with Noah and God promises not to flood the earth again. This is a model to the Israelites. It's something that would be ingrained into their culture. Now, in chapter 18, Saul, who, as a reminder, is God's selected first king of Israel, which, by the way, they demanded, it wasn't put upon them, and a great reminder to be careful what you wish for, but that is another sermon for another time. So anyways, Saul and David go into battle. He takes him into his house. Saul, he watches David as he's best friends with his son. David has a crush on his daughter. These are relationships, they're memories, they're conversations that wouldn't feel that unfamiliar to ourselves, probably, and emotion-wise. But the longer that David is there, the more that he grows successful and grows into his own and continues to live his life, the more Saul grows more and more jealous and weary. In chapter 19, we see what it looks like to have a Jonathan and David kind of relationship. When Saul decides that he's going to take out David, he's grown too much and it's done. Jonathan, Saul's son, as a reminder, he's family. And yet David's his best friend who he just made a covenant with to stand by. What a hard place to be. Saul promises his son, this is done, you're right. Well, Saul listens and he makes the promise that David can come back and he will let him live. He's not gonna take him out this time. Well, what a surprise. Saul gets in a black mood and he throws a tantrum, in today's words. He sets out to kill Saul. David's his mentor, his father-in-law. Saul was a person who would have been really instrumental to him, I would imagine. And yet Saul is so obsessed with getting rid of David. He is so angry that he continues to want to take him out. Except, surprise, after turn, as Jesus makes friends, and his wife, who is Saul's daughter, and the people who he has invested in and who have invested in him, David gets away. So now you should have about everything you need to know to hear what happens when you are a true friend. When you invest fully in a person and trust them to trust fully in who you are, and they trust back. I am going to have you sit back and just take a listen to how deep David and Jonathan's friendship goes. In 1 Samuel chapter 20.
Then David fled from Naioth at Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked,
"What have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to kill me?"
"Never,"
Jonathan replied.
"You are not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything, great or small, without letting me know. Why would he hide this from me? It isn't so."
But David took an oath and said,
"Your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes, and he has said to himself, 'Jonathan must not know this, or he will be grieved.' Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death."
Jonathan said to David,
"Whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you."
So David said,
"Look, tomorrow is the new moon feast, and I am supposed to dine with the king. But let me go and hide in the field until the evening of the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him, 'David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan.' If he says, 'Very well,' then your servant is safe. But if he loses his temper, you can be sure that he is determined to harm me. As for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I am guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father?"
"Never,"
Jonathan said.
"If I had the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you?"
David asked.
"Who will tell me if your father answers you harshly?"
"Come,"
Jonathan said.
"let's go out into the field."
So they went there together. Then Jonathan said to David,
"I swear by the Lord, the God of Israel, that I will surely sound out my father by this time the day after tomorrow. If he is favorably disposed toward you, will I not send you word and let you know? But if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with Jonathan, be it ever so severely, if I do not let you know and send you away in peace. May the Lord be with you, as he has been with my father. But show me unfailing kindness like the Lord's kindness, as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family, not even when the Lord has cut off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth."
So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying,
"May the Lord call David's enemies to account."
And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. Then Jonathan said to David,
"Tomorrow is the new moon feast. You will be missed because your seat will be empty. The day after tomorrow, toward evening, go to the place where you hid when this trouble began and wait by the stone easel. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it as though I were shooting at a target. Then I will send a boy and say, 'Go find the arrows.' If I say to him, 'Look, the arrows are on this side of you, bring them here,' then come. Because as surely as the Lord lives, you are safe. There is no danger. But if I say to the boy, 'Look, the arrows are beyond you,' then you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. And about the matter you and I discussed, remember, the Lord is witness between you and me forever."
So David hid in the field, and when the new moon feast came, the king sat down to eat. He sat in his customary place by the wall opposite Jonathan. And Abner sat next to Saul, but David's place was empty. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought,
"Something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he is unclean."
But the next day, the 2nd day of the month, David's place was empty again. Then Saul said to his son Jonathan,
"Why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal? Either yesterday or today.
Jonathan answered.
David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, "Let me go because our family is observing a sacrifice in the town, and my brothers ordered me to be there. If I found favor in your eyes, let me get away to see my brothers." That is why he has not come to the king's table.
Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan, and he said to him,
You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send someone to bring him to me, for he must die.
Why should he be put to death? What has he done?
Jonathan asked his father. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger. On that second day of the feast he did not eat, because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. In the morning, Jonathan went out to the field for his meeting with David. He had a small boy with him, and he said to the boy,
"Run and find the arrows I shoot."
As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrow had fallen, Jonathan called out after him,
"Isn't the arrow beyond you?
Then he shouted,
Hurry, go quickly, don't stop."
The boy picked up the arrow and returned to his master. The boy knew nothing about all this, only Jonathan and David knew. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said,
"Go, carry them back to town."
After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times, with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. Jonathan said to David,
"Go in peace. For we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever.'"
Then David left, and Jonathan went back to the town.
They were so close and so committed that Jonathan literally disobeyed his father and sends his best friend away to save his life. They were there for each other. They'd been through the trenches. They'd run the halls of the palace. They've celebrated life together. Who stood with you in your trenches? Who's been with you on your mountaintops? Who's protected you? Perhaps you don't think of a friendship in your life like this. Maybe you see yourself lonely, or really you only have your family, which all can be friends as well. But I hope that you take note this next week of who you consider a friend. Think of the seasons of your life and take note of who's been there, but also who hasn't. If you feel like you're missing that person, or maybe you know you're blessed and you have that person, I challenge you to look outside yourself. Do not make yourself the main character of your life and the people who come in and out of there until it gets too hard or they're burnt out, or you move on to the next person as their supporting actors and actresses. Look for who may need you. I learned young in Girl Scouts that to have a friend, you have to be a friend. What kind of friend do you want? Do you want someone to just walk and get coffee or occasionally with? Someone to pick up the phone and call and just gab with? Someone to sit with you in your tears and your grief? Someone to be there to high five you when you get that win, or stand by your side as you say, "I do," or cry someday by your grave when that time has come? Then I challenge you first to be that person. Take note of who you surround yourself with and be brave. Find someone and be that person for them, and allow them to be that person for you. 8 out of 10 times when I've been vulnerable with someone, they've been vulnerable back, and thus trust is built. It won't be easy. All of us are human. You'll let them down. Certainly they'll let you down. It's going to be hard. There are days that you don't want to talk to each other, and there are days that you can't not talk to each other. But that's relationships in life. Now back to the Lord of the Rings. You didn't think I'd forget, did you? If you have not, let me preface this. If you have not read or watched the films, you have had a chance since 1954, and this will have spoilers. So if that's something and you are Lord of the Rings, you want to see it, you want to know what it's about, you have no interest in seeing how the story ends, then just sign off, be a good friend. Thank you for being here. However, It's worth spoiling because Frodo and Sam are some kind of an iconic friendship. What a model. If you're not familiar, Frodo is given a ring and a journey. It's long and it's hard. He starts with a group traveling with him. They start as friends. As time in the story progresses, people take different turns. Companions lose their lives. Series and ups and downs and choices get us to the point where we're left with Frodo with the ring and his best friend Sam, who stuck with him through this treacherous journey. When Frodo is so obsessed with the ring and cannot see what's going around him so much that he accuses Sam, the one who's been with him, of wanting the ring for himself so deeply and hostilely that he pushes him away. Well, Sam isn't going to be deterred that easily. They've come pretty far. This was Frodo's journey and he was sticking with him. Long story short, we get to Mordor and they reunite and the ring's with Frodo. Frodo is so consumed with this journey and falls for the power of the ring as many before him that he loses his way. The reason that Sam's not as affected as much by the ring is the same way as others. It's because of his great love and loyalty towards Frodo. When we get to the last part of the journey, Frodo can't go on. It's just too far and it's too hard. So without further ado, let's see what Sam's reaction is after this long journey that was treacherous and painful, and Frodo was not the kindest to him. How does he react in those final moments?
Do you remember the Shire, Mr. Frodo? It'll be spring soon. The orchards will be in blossom. And the birds will be nesting in the hazel thicket. And they'll be sowing the summer barley in the lower fields. And eating the first of the strawberries with cream. Do you remember the taste of strawberries?
Oh, Sam, I can't recall the taste of food. No, the sound of water. The touch of grass. Naked in the dark. There's nothing, no veil between me and the wheel of fire. I can see him with my waking eyes.
Then let us be rid of it. Once and for all. Come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it for you. But I can carry you. Come on!
He straight up carries him. He says, you can't finish this, but you need to. It's your journey, so let me carry you to finish this. Remember the good times. Remember who you are. He reminds of his home. This story is made on the foundation of this friendship in the beginning. It's because of who he was, and Sam knew who he was. Frodo brings him along on this journey. He makes the first move, but Sam finishes it. Just like David and Jonathan's loyalty and love in hard times, take a moment to see who has been with you, to cheer or hold your hand in the scariest seasons. If you can't think of anyone at all, then please know I'm praying for you and I sit with you, because there are hard and lonely seasons and seasons of great joy where we all must face them alone when we just don't want to. I challenge you to invest in someone, love someone, and show them how you'd like to be treated by treating them and modeling the friendship you are looking for. No one is meant to do life alone. I pray as you go through this week, whether it's the best week you've ever had or you are in a dark place alone, reach out and share it with someone. I will always start a time for a minute to close your eyes. I want you to think about the people who are in your life, the people who want to be or who have been. Think of what made them come to mind, what qualities made them special and a friend. And then go be that person for them or take that model and be it for someone else. So I just hope you take this minute of reflection. Thank you. You could have done a lot of things with your time, and I am so grateful that you spent it with me. I pray that as you go into the week ahead, that you have a blessed week and that you take time to reach out and to think about friendship, think about what you want your life to be. As friends get vaccinated and herd immunity happens and things change, think of the people who have been for you, with you the last year, and think of those who are missing who you want to reach out with and follow up again. It takes two to be a friend. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a blessed week.